Hello. I'm here for another solution video for one of my puzzles. This one just released barely an hour ago, not even. Yeah, about a half hour ago, actually. Technically, I made this like almost a month ago, but as you can see by the little blurb at the start here, it's part of a packet of puzzles that was just released at midnight. So I just now whipped together the Logic Masters page because I forgot to do that before. So I'm going to step through this puzzle, save some time, and kind of skip over the backstory and all that, but yeah, so like I said, it's part of a puzzle pack. The packet is linked to here. And you can click there, click get the PDF, click PDF again. There's a whole bunch of 11 pages worth of things here. I only made one of them. Mine's on page 7 here. But there's a bunch of other ones that are not only just other puzzles, many of them are not even Sudoku. So if you like other types of puzzles, you might like the other ones on there too. Yeah, so what we have here is representing two different pride flags, and the way that's represented in terms of the rules is by cloned lines. So let's start with the simpler rules first. Unlike a lot of my puzzles so far that tend to have a lot of rules smashed in, there's only 3 rules here. We have normal Sudoku rules, that kind of counts as like rule 0, sort of. So that's 1 to 9 once each, every row, column, and box. Pretty standard Sudoku stuff. And we have killer Sudoku, so that is the cages here. So in this case, these 3 cells surrounded by this little dotted line stuff with the 21 means these 3 digits will sum to 21. These will sum to 12, these will sum to 17, etc. We also have a single German whispers line, so that means the adjacent digits on this must be different by at least 5. So if this is a 2, that would need to be at least a 7 in order to be 5 away from it. And same, then this would now also then need to be at least 5 away from whatever this middle digit is. Going further, we then have the cloned lines rule. So you notice the 2 flags represented here, and they both have a black line. So that is this here and that there. They also both have both a white line, so that's these 2, and then 2 purple lines, which are these. That's accurate to the flags themselves, but it's also important here because those lines that are the same color will be clones of each other, meaning wherever a digit appears on this black line, the same digit will appear in the same relative position on the other black line. So the leftmost, the second leftmost, etc. So there's some immediate things you can kind of take away from that right away. But that's the beginning of this. And now here's your chance to pause if you want to try this on your own before you continue. Assuming not, we will go from here. And so there's some freebies we can get right away from that. So there's a 6 on the far right edge of this purple line, which means we can immediately place a 6 here. There's also the fact that even though we can't necessarily do anything with it now, you can see that these 3 summing to 21 means the same 3 relative cells on this would also sum to 21. So you could do some math with that. I'll say that's not really worth investigating for now, but the thing we really need to do to make some initial progress here is to think about bigger implications of the cloned lines. So, we got the freebie 6 here. But the next question to ask would be, well, if a line, if one of these lines has a certain digit on it, what does that mean for the rest of that row? So if this purple line has a 6 here, because of this up here, that means this 15 cage cannot have a 6 on it, or within it. Now, if you're using the killer calculator, which I do recommend for this, it's just easier to work with, then, hold on, my ring light is falling over. So what we can do with this is we can say that there must not be a 6 in this cage, so you can rule out 6 like that. But also, more importantly, this purple line takes up 6 out of the 9 spots in this row. Similar here. We also have a 2 given in this row, so what that means is the 2 is not on the purple line in this row, which also is an effect that copies down here. It means that this 15 cage must have a 2 in it, because that's part of the line, part of the row where the 2 must exist, just like up here. There's 3 cells that are not part of purple. Those 3 cells will be the same as these 3 cells. So this 15 cage doesn't have a 6 on it, and it must have a 2 in it. So that immediately rules it down to either 2, 4, 9 or 2, 5, 8. No 9 in the center. We can kind of put a floating 2 over there. And we can do the exact same kind of logic with the black line up here. This black line does not have a 3 on it because there's a 3 given over here. That means the 15 cage down here must have a 3 in it. There's no given digit with the 6 like this equivalent, so we can't do more than that right now. But that does already reduce it down to 2 options, 3, 4, 8, or 3, 5, 7. Put a similar floating 3 there. And now the way you continue past this point is think a little more about what's happening in box 7 here. So we can do a little bit of kind of killer math here. We have two 15 cages, and the digits 1 to 9 will sum to 45 always. That's just a fact. You can do the math if you want to check, but it's a pretty common, rule when it comes, or pretty common handy trick to know about. That means these three must also sum to 15. Even though there's no cage given for it, just based on math, the whole box has to sum to 45, and we've already used 30 here. So these three must also sum to 15. Importantly, it has to sum to 15 without a 2 or a 3 on it, because we're using 2 and 3 here. So if we kind of look at, maybe just look at the list from up here, you can see that reduces the options quite a bit. 15 cages pretty much always need to have a low digit, 1 through 3 on it, or a 4 if it's 4, 5, 6. But this is a green line here. We can never have a 5 on it, because that would break German whisper logic. So because we can rule out that 4, 5, 6, we could also rule out everything else that has a 5 on it. And what that means is we've used up 2 and 3, so there must be a 1 on this somewhere for that to work. And it specifically has to be summing to 15 with a 1 that doesn't have a 5 on it. And that leaves only 168 as the only option for that. The other way you could kind of intuitively work through this is to think about if it has to have a 1 on it, just by the same logic. It couldn't have a 2 or a 3. The next best thing it could have is maybe a 4. 1 and 4 together would sum to 5. You can't put 10 with it. So the minimum you would need is 1 and 6 on it. As soon as you have 1 and 6, it must have an 8 paired with it to make that work. So 1, 6, 8. This involves having 2 high digits and 1 low digit. The low digit must be in the middle for German whispers to work. Also, the fact that we know this is 168 means these cannot have 8 in it. So this cannot be a 348 anymore. And this cannot be a 258 anymore. Kind of take out those marks. And we've now worked out what 3 digits are not on the purple line, or 2, 4, 9. We already knew there wasn't a 2. But we can now mark up here 4 and 9. That's given 9 comes in handy here, so we get a 4 and a 9 there. Similar for the black line, we now know 3, 5, 7 are the ones that are not on it up here. So 3, 5, 7 up there. Now that comes in handy up here because this 21 cage now can no longer have a 5 or a 7 on it. And that leaves only 4, 8, 9 as options. And again, make sure we're doing clone lines. Must copy that down here. These 3 cells would be the equivalent of these 3 cells up here. This right one cannot have a 9, so we can take out 9 from the rightmost one here as well. There's also a 12 cage in the middle we haven't looked at yet, so that's 3, 9, 4, 8, or 5, 7. Either of them can be 9. That can't be a 4, so that can't be an 8. This being 5, 7, 8. Don't forget the clone line. That must be 5, 7, 8 like that. And now we have a couple rows that are almost filled in with pencil marks, so we can kind of finish the job now. Like this row, we have 3, 5, 7, and 4, 8, 9 filled in. So that means we must have 1, 2, and 6 to fill in the remaining spots. This spot cannot be 2 or a 6, so that must be a 1. Again, copy that up here. 2, 6, 2, 6 with a 1 on the right side. So that helps with the row, but what that also does is it means this is now a 17 cage with a 1 in it. The only way to make that work is with a 7, 9 next to it. That has to go like that. That goes back up here and gives us some digits there. The 9 comes out of this spot, which means 9 on the black line for this little pseudo virtual cage down here goes there. Similarly up here. This now can't be a 7, so this also can't be a 7, which means this can't be a 5. We also take out 7 over here. This is also a 4, 8 pair, so this can no longer be an 8. That must be 5. Could have just seen that a step ago, but 5 and 7 there. And with that, we now have box 9 almost filled in. So what this is missing is we are missing a 2 and a 3. Again, purple line is one of the clone lines, so copy that pencil mark up here. We see this can't be a 2, so that must be a 3 with a 2 down there. And continue to do our pencil marking here. So this row is now missing a 1, 7, and 8, which means up here we can put 1, 7, 8. That can't be a 1, so that can't be 1. Take out 7 from there, 7 from here. We actually have a 1, 8 pair here, so that's 7. That takes out 7 from here, gives us 3, 5 pair here, so we can put 7 there. This box is now missing a 3 and a 4. as well as a 5. Unfortunately, no clone with this. Yeah, that gives us quite a bit of room to work with here. So that's a lot of digits placed in on some of these lines. But one line we haven't looked at all yet is the white line. So that's this here. Now for this step, I find the most elegant way is really to just start kind of trial and erroring with some of these cells. So if you start to look at what could go here, kind of type in everything, it can't be anything else. It could be 4, 5, 7, 8. So again, copy the pencil mark up here. That can't be a 5. And just kind of continue doing this process. I do generally think most people kind of don't really like to do this sort of brute force pencil marking every option. I think with clone lines and palindromes and rules like that, it makes a lot of sense to do, even if it's tedious, just because it can be really deceiving how many numbers or digits a certain cell can see when you have two parts of the grid to focus on. Importantly, the fact that this cell, or these three in general, also see a 9, 4, 8 up here, that means these three are probably going to be under a bit more pressure. So if we look at this next one, that immediately can't be anything except 1, 4, 8, which means this can't be anything but 1, 4, 8, and as I just said, it can't be 4, 8. So this must be a 1. That also now satisfies the rest of our purple line, 8 and 1 there, which means 8 and 1 here. The 8 on that purple line also bounces back up here and gives us the order of that, which also now bounces back down to the black line. We also get some work with the 5 there. Get an 8 up here that can no longer exist, which means 8 can't go here either. You can see just how powerful this is. Having 3 clone lines, they really interact with each other very, very efficiently once you get some progress made. Continue this process. This can't be a bunch of things. That can't be that. This can't be 4 or 7, so this must be a 3 here. That does some more work down here. Continue this. That must be 2 or 6. That's unresolved for now. This must be 2, 6, or 9. But it can't be 2 or 6 because we have a 2, 6 pair up here. So that must be 9, which means this must be 9. Takes out 9 from here, which forces 9 over there. Continue that once again. This must be 2, 4, 6. Can't be 2 or 6 because, again, same exact pair from before. So this must be a 4. Kind of breezing through this because I'm just trusting that if you're doing this, you're probably keeping up. This means this can't be a 7, or must be a 7, which bounces back up here. We now also have this resolved. And that also now resolves the black line. 6 and 2 there, 6 and 2 here. Which makes this work, and that being a 2, this must be a 2. I believe. Yep, that is all 3 of the clone lines worked out now. So if you want to double check, you can, but that's 6, 2, 9. This is 6, 2, 9, 8, 4, 1, and 8, 4, 1. 7, 1, 8, 7, 1, 8, 5, 3, 6, and 5, 3, 6, and then 4, 9, 2, 3, 1, 7. Of course, you can also just check with the solution checker that everything is correct so far. What it does mean is all we have left now is just normal Sudoku. So we have some spots like this where we're only missing 2 things here. This is a 1 and a 6 missing. That must be 6, 1 like that. This is missing a 4, 5, 8. This must be 8, 4, and 5. This row is now missing a 2 and a 3. That's 3 and 2. This is missing 5, 6, 8. Not resolved quite yet. This column is missing a 9, it looks like. This is missing 5, 6, 7. 6, 7, 5 like that. It's the next best spot to look. Maybe this row, we're only missing 3 things here. So that's missing a 5, 6, 8. 6, 8, and 5 like that. Getting pretty close. That resolves all of this down here. This, we need a 1, 3, and an 8. So that's 3, 8, 1. And finally, we have 2 and 4 up here. And yeah, so that is newest puzzle made. I think technically I might have made this before. What was the other ones I posted recently? I might have possibly made this before the Easter egg one, to be honest. I don't actually remember when exactly I made it. It was towards the end of April, but either way, this is the most recent released one at least. Yeah, definitely recommend you try out any other ones I have if you haven't yet. I just recently updated the format of my Logic Masters post to get rid of the attempt at organizing all the puzzles in terms of difficulty, because it was just too difficult to keep up with that now that I have 10 or 11 puzzles, I think. But I'm going to try to also organize my YouTube to have all the solution videos in their own playlist and have the link on the page point to that instead of just my channel in general. Because I recently did put up some unrelated speedrunning gaming videos, and they could be, you have to scroll down a bit to find all the Sudoku ones now. Yeah, hope you enjoyed.